Ukrainian expert says Zelensky in dire straits, doing everything to cling to US and Europe.
With peace negotiations mediated by the US currently stalled, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky finds himself increasingly cornered. According to officials and experts in Kyiv, Zelensky is now left with virtually no good options. Only one: continue trying to push US President Donald Trump to turn against Russian President Vladimir Putin, while struggling to maintain support from European allies. Behind the scenes of high-level diplomatic exchanges, the situation on the ground is growing more unfavorable for Ukraine. In this prolonged war of attrition, Ukraine's position will continue to weaken without harsher Western sanctions and further military aid from the US. Oleksandr Merezhko, a lawmaker from Zelensky's party, stated, "The president is in a very difficult position. Behind him stands a nation that is suffering. We're forced to do everything we can to avoid being abandoned by the US or blamed for failure." However, President Trump's lack of criticism toward President Putin, especially for skipping the peace talks in Turkey over the weekend, has deeply disappointed Kyiv. Since March, Zelensky has demonstrated flexibility and full compliance with Washington's demands to avoid upsetting Trump, still seen as Ukraine's most crucial ally. Ukraine's strategy has been clear. The more serious and cooperative Kyiv appears, the more it exposes Moscow's unwillingness to engage in genuine peace efforts. This, in turn, could push the US to impose harsher sanctions to cripple Russia's war machine. Yet, Russia's position remains unchanged. While they claim to be open to peace talks, their demands remain unacceptable for Ukraine, such as ceding territory, demilitarization, and a permanent commitment to staying out of NATO. In recent weeks, Moscow has rejected the US proposal for a 30-day ceasefire, instead announcing 2 brief ceasefires before accusing Kyiv of violating them, an apparent effort to portray Ukraine as the side obstructing peace negotiations. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized the complexity of the situation. "We understand that Washington wants rapid progress, but it's important to recognize that resolving the Ukraine crisis is a complicated process with many issues that need to be addressed," Peskov stated. Ukraine is currently calling for an unconditional temporary ceasefire as a prerequisite for deeper negotiations in the future. Analysts believe Ukraine is trying to maintain flexibility in its negotiating stance, even to the extent of accepting Trump's proposals, despite the risk of falling into what some call Putin's dialogue trap. "They are desperate to keep the Americans on their side," said expert Balazs Jarabik. In March, Kyiv agreed to the US proposed 30-day ceasefire, but President Putin rejected it by presenting terms unacceptable to Ukraine. By April, Kyiv had signed a major mining deal aligned with Trump's economic priorities, following months of tough negotiations and a temporary freeze in military aid. "We've shown that we're willing to negotiate and support Trump's plan," said political analyst Mykola Davidiuk. Despite threats from the US and Europe, no sanctions package so far has been strong enough to truly cripple Russia's energy sector, a key leverage point that could pressure the Kremlin into concessions. President Zelensky has recently voiced strong support for a sanctions bill introduced in the US Congress by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. The legislation could impose tariffs of up to 500% on Russian energy imports. Graham claims he has enough support in the House of Representatives to bring the bill to a vote. As diplomatic efforts stall, fierce fighting continues along the 1,000-kilometer front line. Analysts believe Russia is approaching a critical juncture. It may either negotiate to solidify control over currently occupied territories or launch a major summer offensive to expand its holdings before winter sets in. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to suffer from severe shortages of both manpower and ammunition. Some estimates suggest Kyiv may only be able to hold out for another 6 months to 2 years, depending on the level of Western aid and its ability to ramp up domestic weapons production. Currently, Russia is intensifying its assaults in the Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson regions. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia's objective is to seize all of Dnipropetrovsk province, allowing Moscow to claim full control over 2 of the 4 contested territories.